What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Fools Get Clean 2 podcast. We will highlight people's comeback stories. Welcome our next guest, Chino Jimmy. What's up, Chino Jimmy?
How you doing, Gabriel?
Good, man. Glad you can come on, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, let's get into it. So, how was your childhood growing up?
Childhood was mostly good from what I remember. I was born and raised in Chicago from two immigrant Koreans. They both had a pretty decent command of the English language, which obviously made it a little bit easier for us to just kind of live and integrate with the neighborhood. For my dad to have his business. Um, so I have an older sister as well, and it was just the four of us. But yeah, we were definitely a minority, and definitely felt it.
So, how was school growing up for you, like elementary, junior high, and high school? Was it hard to fit in because of your surroundings, or what was that like?
You know, actually, I myself and my sister, we didn't have too much difficulty fitting in. Um, I probably got teased more just by nature of being a boy
Yeah.
and being Asian among, mostly whites. Um, you know, they would talk smack to me about, my eyes or whatever, or, you know, eating dogs.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But, for some reason, I would be able to kind of talk back to them. I'd be able to, talk trash right back to them.
Snap back.
Yeah, a little banter,
Yeah.
So um, that's what school was like. I played sports. I grew up playing ice hockey.
Well, oh, in Chicago. Huh?
Yeah, man. I know that's
Yeah.
really, it's really a white sport. You
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
And I was heavily into skateboarding, which was a little bit more diverse.
Yeah.
But deep down, I actually really wanted to do martial arts.
No way.
Yeah.
How come you did it?
Because my folks were thinking like, we want you to do hockey. When they first got to Chicago, that was when the Blackhawks were doing really well in the early 60s or something like that. And they just were totally taken by the sport, the excitement of Chicago Stadium during a live game. So they wanted their Korean boy to be a hockey star.
No way.
Yeah.
Were you good?
I was decent, man. I had wheels. I was quick.
Yeah.
I was quick with my hands. And especially when we were real young, I was okay, but come high school, these white kids got a lot bigger than I did, a lot quicker. And so, I used to be kind of like, I went from being sort of like the first line on the team to like the third line,
Okay, yeah.
But I still played varsity in my high school. I went, after a couple years in Lake Forest, Illinois, I ended up going to boarding school out in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, and played hockey out there.
Did you get in trouble, or why did you go out there?
That's a good question. It's not because I got into trouble. It's because these other Korean parents told my parents that like the education for kids is always better out in the East Coast.
Okay.
You see, we were in the Midwest.
Okay.
So they were just saying like, yeah, if you want your kid to be really well educated and go to a good college, you should send him out east as soon as you possibly can. So they did it. They sent me out to New Jersey. This would be my junior year in high school. So I finished off high school in that boarding school in New Jersey called Lawrenceville, and I was there for 2 years. And then after that, I went to college in Washington, D.C. I went to Georgetown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they send both of you guys, you and your sister, or just you?
Just me. Yeah. My sister seemed to excel pretty well enough, I guess,
Yeah.
at the local public school in the Chicago suburb. Um, and her thing was the piano. She would have like her own like concerts and things like that. And even to this day, she teaches piano.
No way.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So, did you ever party when you were in high school or anything, or go out with your friends and drink, or did that come later on?
that the drugs, the chemicals came later on. Actually, in high school, I was pretty clean. I wouldn't say that I was like a model student or a kid by any means. Um, I was rebellious. I got into a lot of fights. Um, you know, I was hanging out with kind of the more rebellious crowd um, versus like the nerds and all the smart
Yeah.
kids. I think by nature of just being a hockey player, um, that for some reason just kind of kept me away from being labeled like a complete nerd.
Yeah.
Asian, like
Yeah.
kind of, like
Yeah.
that kid Lawrence in the School of Rock. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that cool.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But I think there was just probably some unspoken respect from my peers that, I was doing that, riding skateboards, playing hockey, um, that I guess for the most part I was accepted, but there was always like a handful of real racist kids that would call me names or want to fight me,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Was there any Mexicans out there?
In the suburb that I was in, there were not too many Hispanics. No, this was mostly a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant crowd. Not even a lot of white Jewish people. This was, yeah, Presbyterian, um, wealthy whites. You know, and to this day, that suburb is still very, very white.
No way. It was lesbian back there.
Um, Going back, I realized like, damn, this is different.
Yeah.
From what I'm used to now, which
Yeah.
is like California. It's
Yeah.
very diverse. In fact, white people are like the minority these
Yeah.
days.
Here.
It
Yeah.
feels
Here
like,
too. Yeah.
you know. Um, so going back, it's a bit of a trip, and I realized like I grew up in almost like a bubble. You know, it was just a very small depiction of society. You know,
So, what happened after high school? What did you went to Georgetown, and how was your college experience like?
yeah. I have to say, I think I wasted a lot of time in college. I wasn't very focused. I didn't know specifically what kind of direction I wanted to take,
Okay.
even though this great education was right in front of me and I
Yeah.
had an awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, you see, for my folks, the main thing was that I would have to get into a good school. So, like, from the get go, everything was all about, you need to play sports so that you could get into a good school. You need to get good grades so that you could get into like a well known college. You need to still play music, the piano. um, and, all these things to sort of prepare me so that I could get into a decent school, which I did. But then once I got in, my parents were stoked, they were happy. And, I was sitting there with all this freedom and a lack of direction. And I think that's when, things really started taking a nosedive in my life.
So, was there a lot of parties in college? I'm assuming so, right? Like frats, or what was that like for you in the scene in college?
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of parties, a lot of drinking going on at school. I was also part of a band. I was playing.
What?
Yeah, I played guitar in this cover band, and
What kind of music would you guys play?
we played a lot of
80s,
90s stuff.
90s,
Yes,
Motley Crue.
Pearl Jam,
Okay.
Nirvana, some Metallica, Chili Peppers.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of gabacho music.
That's right. I like that music, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I grew up listening to all kinds of music. Like I grew up like towards the later '80s, right? So like Metallica, Marley Crew, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. Oh
You know
yeah.
what I
We
mean?
played a lot of Guns N'
Yeah,
Roses as well. Um, we liked Motley Crue.
yeah,
Dr. Feelgood. You know
yeah,
what I mean? To hell with the devil. Or no, that was Striper actually.
yeah, yeah.
Striper.
So what happened after the cover band? So is that when you want to say you started drinking, or
Okay,
how did you start getting to
yeah,
substances?
yeah. I stopped playing hockey in college, uh, but that left me with like some issues in my foot. Uh, the skate is very tight, so I developed ingrown toenails.
Oh, that shit
Yeah,
sucks.
they're painful, right? So um, I want to say this was like the summer after my junior year in college. I went to a doctor in Chicago to take care of that problem in my feet. And the procedure was quick and easy for these guys. They see those all the time. And then he prescribed me some painkillers,
Okay, really.
Tylenol 3
That's right.
with
Codeine.
codeine.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So um, I didn't think that I needed them, to be honest, at first. Because there was like, he gave me a shot and my toe was numb. And he's like, oh, yeah, when that wears off at home, you're going to want to take one of these pills. And he was right. Because, I got home and in a couple hours, like my foot was throbbing. So I took one of those pills and that was like an instant change. Like if there was a switch, an addiction switch, that thing was just turned on all the way for me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just changed the way I was experiencing reality. Like for the first time, I felt um, comfortable in my skin. And I didn't know it back then, but I was carrying a lot of pain from my childhood.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize was this Tylenol 3 was not only medicating that pain in my foot, but it was medicating a lot of emotional and spiritual pain as well. And I should probably let you know, like in my childhood, um, even though socially with peers things were mostly normal and I was accepted, there was a couple incidents when I was like really little, like 5, when I was molested by some neighbors, and you know, I kind of took those experiences and sort of tucked them away in my memory and like kind of didn't want to deal with that ever. Because when that happened, I had no idea really what was going on,
Yeah.
other than I knew that this was like wrong
Yeah.
and something was just not right. And I felt like I would need to keep this a secret
Yeah.
because it was just too, I guess, embarrassing, you know, to go around and tell anybody that this went down.
Yeah.
But it did go down, and so um, when I think about that, I think that it takes a kid's self image,
Innocence too.
innocence, and it just destroys it altogether.
Yeah.
Um, it robs it. That's one of the things that I realized about a lot of addicts like us is some form of abuse in our childhood, in our formation years. Um, that abuse is pretty common in our community.
Yeah.
You know, um, so the way I can describe how I was thinking in my mind, the best way that I could put it is like, if you're a kid and this goes down, it's like this. You know how when you're in elementary school and the teacher brings out, some crayons and markers and gives you a sheet of paper, and they say like, draw a picture of yourself. So for me, what that abuse was like is, I was drawing a picture of myself, but then something happened where the marker just slipped and the picture was ruined, and it's in marker, so it's not like I can erase it and start over. So um, my self-portrait right there that I was trying to make good was ruined. And it was sort of like, you know, the feeling that I had towards myself was like, let me just take this piece of paper, crumple it up into a ball, and toss it. You know what I mean? I just realized um, something from that point on in me was broken. You know what I mean? It was like an unfixable situation, something you can't undo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't realize how much that affected me until later on in life. And I realized it made me not able to trust people. It affected my levels of intimacy with family, with close people. I always carried the secret, right?
Yeah.
So that was always like going to be some sort of barricade between me and the rest of my family, my
Yeah.
parents, um, because I had this like nasty secret that I was carrying around with me that nobody could know about. So, um, going back to the uh, addiction, I mean, you have to think about it. Um, for a lot of years, carrying that with you. I mean, ever since you're a little kid, you're carrying that around. That becomes a heavy burden. Um, and so that's what I meant by, I never really felt totally comfortable in my skin because something was wrong with me. It was sort of like there was that gash on that self portrait. You know what I mean? That marker slipped in my hand. So there's this huge mark. And I didn't want nobody to see that. I don't want nobody to know about that. So, um, you know, uh, that was something I always carried with me. Some sort of, I guess, some kind of anxiety about the self. So when I took that Tylenol 3, all that completely gone. I had never felt more right in my mind than that moment that those Tylenol 3 was kicking in. I just felt like, wow, look at this, you know, feeling. I mean, this is really how I'm supposed to be. This is the right way, even though it's chemically
Yeah.
induced. This is the right way I should be experiencing my life and reality. How I'm feeling right now. So after that, first of all, I finished the bottle of. This is how I can tell you I'm an addict. Is like I finished that bottle of Tylenol 3, that whole prescription before the morning time.
No way.
30,
That's
30,
crazy.
a bottle of 30.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I just kept popping them and popping. This is, you know, um, and obviously the next day, you know, I needed to get more, find more, but I didn't know exactly what the stuff was. So you know what I did? Um, this is kind of nerdy, but I went to Barnes and Noble's bookstore, okay, with literally a pen and a notebook, and I went to the reference section and found the book on pills, which is called the Physician's Desk Reference.
No way.
I found that book. They were selling it at Barnes and Nobles. And I want to say I was sitting there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just reading through what is this coding, um, And then I found out that pills have different categories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is a category. This is a painkiller, but there's also different painkillers. There's NSAIDs like ibuprofen, you know what I mean, meloxicam,
Yeah.
Voltaren. But then the the codeine fell under the category of opiate painkiller.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, what are these other opiate painkillers? And they listed them right there. You know, they had
Norcos.
Norcos, Vicodins, Loracets, Percodan, Percocet, morphine, Dilaudid. You know what I mean? You know, you can see that I was sort of like, I almost like my addict mind became almost like a student
Yeah.
of drugs, man.
Yeah.
I became like a pharmacy student
Yeah.
because that's what I needed to find. And the devil kind of had it, the trap laid out for me because after I got home, I was like, I wonder if we have any of these type of pills in our house.
No way.
Yeah. And because um, for some reason we kept, I think my parents thought this was like the right way to handle pills, but we kept them in the fridge.
No way.
Yeah. So we kept all our pills in the fridge because they thought probably they were going to stay fresh.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I got to go check the fridge right now.
No way.
And there was a bottle of Vicodins right there.
No way.
Because my mom had sleep apnea surgery like a couple months before and she barely touched those Vicodins. And back then they prescribed a lot.
Yeah.
That was like a Vicodin, 30 pills with 4 refills.
No way.
Yeah. And back then it's like they would, anybody who brought in the empty bottle, they would give the refill to.
Yeah.
So I went through all that Vicodin pretty quickly.
Your mom noticed they were missing?
No, because there were so many other medications in the fridge that she didn't know that it was missing.
Yeah.
It was like that in our house. I also forgot to tell you that as a kid, I think this was after that experience of being abused. I was dealing with insomnia. Like I couldn't go to sleep that easily. But what would help me sleep, I learned was NyQuil.
Yeah.
The green drink,
nasty
like
as hell,
it's nasty. It's like it's like a little thing of absinthe,
Syrup, yeah.
And I can't tolerate alcohol. I'm one of those Asians that gets like totally red in the face. I don't have the enzyme that breaks the alcohol down.
Yeah.
So I end up feeling really like just even with a little small amount of alcohol, I'll feel pretty sick. Like just a pounding headache, face red, itchy, and it's just not a good feeling. And that's a blessing right there from God.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, because if I could drink, I'd be dead from alcohol poisoning by now. No question about it in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some friends that died from, we have friends that died from alcohol poisoning, that would have been me for sure. But what I did abuse alcohol wise throughout my childhood was NyQuil.
No way.
Yeah, I would take a little small, because it came with a shot glass.
Yeah,
a little plastic shot glass.
Yeah. So
I would fill a little bit of that shot glass up, take a swig before I slept, and I slept like a baby, So, the devil kind of had it out for me where it's like I didn't need to go very far to find, these chemicals that I would abuse. They were right there in my house.
Yeah.
And then when the opiates ran out, the Vicodin ran out, I had friends, that I knew from either hockey or, riding skateboards with, that were into pills. And, the addiction just took off at that point. And, it didn't take long, Gabriel, from the day that I took a prescribed Tylenol 3 with codeine to taking street heroin, that was just a matter of maybe 9 months, you know. So,
So, how bad did it get for you with your addiction?
oh, I mean, I was using every day heroin. Yeah, it was getting very bad.
So, was it mainly in Chicago, or did you move to California by then?
No, this was all in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ex was from Chicago, and she would tell me how they would give like the little balloons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So in Chicago, the two street drugs are rock cocaine and China white
yeah.
heroin. Yeah. I don't know what it's like now, but back in the 90s, that's what it was.
So, did your addiction take you to incarceration, or you were able to stay under the radar with that?
Yeah, I was incarcerated briefly. I got busted for a street conflict, um, just a fight, basically. Was I loaded? Yes. And I spent a night in county, you know, but fortunately, I didn't end up, uh, in a federal prison.
So, how did you use heroin? Did you smoke it, slam it, snort it?
All the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was it like injecting it for the first time? Was it nerve wracking? Because for myself, like I hated needles, right? So I
Yeah.
literally had to turn around and just put my arm out, because like I hated needles and I hated just the sight of blood. You know what I mean?
I have no problems with needles.
No way.
Yeah. Um, and I had a friend that was diabetic, so he would be shooting insulin every day. So he kind of knew, what was going on and kind of essentially just showed me what to do,
Yeah.
and the insulin syringes, the gauge of the needle is really small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did it get bad enough for you to decide to change?
Yeah. Well, it got to the point where I kept ended up, in the ER, ending up in the ER, some sort of drug related medical emergency would go down. Um, at one point, I was 125 pounds. I know. I mean, I was like, I looked like, you know, a disease ridden patient that was about to die. And in reality, I was. That's what we are. We are people that have a disease. And that disease was definitely taking my life slowly, just like cancer would,
Yeah.
to a cancer patient, or AIDS to an AIDS patient. You know what I mean? So I think I must have ended up getting busted by my family. They caught me with dope, and I think my dad gave me an ultimatum and just said, like, I'm going to either take you to jail or to rehab. You choose.
No way.
Yeah. So I chose rehab, obviously, and I remember on the way there, we were driving for about an hour, and for that entire hour, he was just cussing me out, you know, um, and saying like a lot of uh, not just expressions of being disappointed with me, but almost like things that you would say to someone if you really hated them.
No way.
Yeah, and you wanted them, almost dead. So, um,
Was there any other people who abused drugs in your family that you know of? Like your sister or your
no,
family
no, my
members?
sister was straight and narrow, as she has always been.
Yeah.
Um, she's always lived an upright life. Um, my dad was like me with alcohol. He would get sick if he drank just a little bit, so that wasn't his thing. He was a chain smoker, a workaholic, but drugs was not part of the equation in our family. I was like the black sheep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was it going to treatment? Where did you go to treatment at?
I would go to these programs in Chicago, in the Chicago area. Um,
Was it inpatient detox
yeah,
or? Okay.
inpatient detox and residential
Yeah.
living situation. And, you know, in total, I've been to probably 6 treatments out in Chicago and 1 out here in California.
Okay.
So, the first few treatments, I think I was going mainly to get people off my back.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mainly because I wanted them to think I'm doing something about this problem. But in
Yeah.
reality, I would just hide it from them.
Yeah.
And since I got busted once from them, I'm probably not going to do the same stupid mistake
Yeah.
and get busted again.
Yeah.
But, we know how this plays out. It's
Yeah.
predictable, dude. I mean, you're not hiding your disease from nobody. They know when you're strung out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially when you're using really hard drugs.
Yeah, those nodding out and like I remember I used to like hum when I was loaded, my chin on my chest. You know what I mean? And like my mom would be like, "What's wrong with you?" Or my dad would be like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I'm just tired." Like, no, that's not being tired. That's
Yeah,
you're loaded.
yeah. Something is going on. We could be blind in 2 eyes and we could tell that something's going on with you, man.
So when was the actual moment where you decided to do something different and change?
Well, I had first gotten clean in Chicago, um, and I don't think it was inspired by one moment. I think it was just inspired because um, the same problems would occur. I would end up being really sick with my body physically. I would end up, in some medical situation. I would end up in rehab detox, and it was just getting old. So, um, at least that desire to want to be clean started to grow. I mean, I started noticing that desire was there, you know, even though there was that part of me that always wanted to get loaded. Um, there was that desire to, you know, lead a clean life. And so um, I started putting some time together by going to all these different meetings. Um, I'd go to NAAA, CA, these Christian recovery groups. And in my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to just take the best from these programs and just apply the best principles that I learned from the programs, and that'll be my recovery. So what ended up happening was I put a little time together, and then we had this pastor friend from Orange County who was visiting Chicago and saw that I was starting to, you know, put my life back together. So he invited me out to live with him in Irvine and work in his church. And I would start a recovery ministry in that church.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So we launched a recovery ministry and did that for almost 10 years, and then I relapsed.
No way.
Yes.
How does it feel to have that much time and then to go out? Like,
Oh,
so were the signs there or?
yes,
Yeah.
they were there. I was in denial about that,
Yeah.
and I honestly wasn't really working a full program for myself.
Yeah.
I was mainly staying clean and talking recovery because that was my job.
Yeah.
I was the recovery pastor out of this large church. And so my role was to help other people. And, it's egotistical. It's all about pride at the end of the day, where, you think like, I got this for myself. And here, let me help you, brother.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
Yeah.
You come through the doors of my ministry. Um, you know, I got all this wisdom and experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you out, brother.
Yeah.
You know, if you got problems any time of the day, call me. Here's my number. And, you know, when you're not really working a program, we all know where that leads.
No defense. Yeah.
Where that leads, you know.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting invited by the same pastor to plant like sort of an affiliate church in Bangkok, Thailand.
What?
Yes, bro, Hangover.
Yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, at the time, you ask about like, were there signs? Oh, there were signs in every direction of my life. I was newly married. I had my first kid. I was totally empty. I was drained. I was so tired from just giving and trying to run this ministry, trying to impress people, trying to impress my wife. You know, everything would backfire. Of course, we would get into arguments and fights, and I didn't treat my wife, you know, very well at the time, and you know, everything was just a mask so that I could look good before the church people.
Yeah.
You know, and I was depleted, man. There was nothing in me. So we all know where that leads. So we go to Thailand, and I'm working for the church in Thailand. I'm with my wife, and at the time my son was maybe 1 year old. Okay. A young family that didn't know what was going on. We had no idea how to live life, let alone manage a family. And here we are working for this church, you know. So I remember I was working in a coffee shop, and I was done with my work, and I put my laptop away in like this backpack, and I was walking home. And that neighborhood is that same neighborhood that they showed in The Hangover.
No way.
Yes, it's called Pat Palm, bro.
No way.
Yeah, it's just a whole bunch. It's really seedy, whole bunch of bars. The rest of Bangkok is actually really clean and beautiful. You know, there's only like a couple real seedy neighborhoods, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And you know, I walked by it on the way to my apartment because we actually lived really close to that neighborhood. And this guy, he's like, "You want a massage?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't want a massage." Yeah, I'm just ignoring the guy. You know, not in the mood to get no gonorrhea today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. You know, I think I'm going to just go home. You can take your AIDS and gonorrhea and, you know what I mean, your warts, and keep them to yourself. That's the last thing I need right now.
Yeah.
But then as I was walking away, the guy goes, "Well, then what do you want?" And I hesitated. I turned around and I asked him, "What do you got?"
No way.
Yeah.
What did he have?
It's like, anything you need.
Want.
Anything you want.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I give you anything you want.
So what did he get you?
Heroin.
No way.
Yeah. Okay. So within, I want to say, less than 5 minutes, I was in the back of some car, snorting heroin, white powder heroin, straight from the Golden Triangle, really pure. And I got loaded. You know, I was just loaded. So somehow I probably had, you know, the peace of mind to call my wife and be like, I'm going to be working a little bit later here at the coffee shop, you know, lying to her.
Yeah.
And I just had to, like, you know, get myself together before I could go home. I was that loaded, you know, just talking about the nods, you know.
Yeah.
So that relapse lasted for about, you know, several years, because obviously within weeks people could tell, like, something's really wrong with Jimmy here. You know, he's at our church staff meetings and he's nodding out.
Yeah.
You know, did you see what he was doing? yeah, that looked weird, something's definitely wrong, and some of the staff knew right away. They didn't need to think twice. They knew that they knew my story, and they knew I was loaded, and they knew I needed help. So I came back to the States, went to my last treatment, and then
that was in Orange County.
That was in Orange County, man. Matter of fact, Garden Grove, right here.
What was the name of it?
Uh,
Was it Unidos?
No, it wasn't Unidos. It was
the Rock Center.
No. It wasn't any of those treatments. It was like one of those one-day opiate detoxes. I don't know if you remember. Oh, you know what it was called? It was called the Weissman Clinic.
The Weissman?
Yeah, dude.
So it's like an outpatient detox?
Well, no. There was some residential, for like a week. But the thing was to get you off of opiates. So they put you under anesthesia.
No way.
Yes. And then they give you naltrexone, which is an opiate blocker.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that flushes your system mostly from, kicking. But when you wake up, you're still kicking a little bit. You're going to still have a couple bad days. But anyways, at least it got me clean and, off of the physical part of it with the opiates. But the problem was, like, I didn't really stay clean until 4 years later. And this is the part where I think my story really matters. What happened was I connected with a guy from NA. He was going to my ministry at the time, that recovery ministry at the church, and he got clean for the first time out of that ministry. And then he ended up finding his way to Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah.
You know Roy?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's one of Roy's sponsees.
Okay, yeah.
His name is Brian. And we were talking, and, he could tell right away I was loaded. And he just said, maybe you want to make your way back to a meeting. And he gave me his basic text. And at that point, things were just so bad in my marriage and in my home, and I was about to lose my family. I had to get clean. At that point, I was really sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I really wanted to get clean, but it was just so hard to, because I already knew I had put 7 years together and then threw that away. Am I going to go through this again, starting from square one? And what ended up happening is I started going to the Santa Ana Alano Club. And this was the Ramona building. And I started going to meetings there. And eventually I found my way to our home group, The Fix. And that's when I told myself I wanted to really get this. I wanted to start over, and I wanted to stick with one program, Narcotics Anonymous, and not think I'm just going to be a part of this program, that program, but let me be part of one program. That's for me. I know there's some people that can do 2 programs.
Yeah.
They stay clean, and it's actually really good for them. And I have no problem with that. But for me personally, I needed to stick with one program.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to keep it simple, because it's very easy for me to complicate things in my mind. So I ended up finding a sponsor in Larry, who's no longer at The Fix, but he has his roundtable meeting in Garden Grove right here. Yeah. So, that's where I really started working the steps for myself, I think, in an honest way for the first time, where it was like I was submitting to one program, and I was doing this not to appease my family, not to cover up something, not even for my wife and my kids, but I wanted to be clean for me. And that's, I think, when my recovery got stronger. It wasn't perfect in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I introduced myself as a newcomer at the Fix probably for over a year.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we see guys that it's like, oh, they're introducing themselves as a newcomer again.
Yeah.
Well, that was me.
Yeah.
And that was me for a long time.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where even some of my sponsee brothers were like talking to Larry, like, what's going on with this Chino here?
Yeah.
You know, what's his problem? You know, but that was, you know, no one confronted me about it. The truth is, I only got a lot of love and acceptance from the brothers in Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah.
I mean, people like you who would say, like, no matter what, okay, even if you're loaded right now, this is your seat. We accept you here. You're one of us. You're a brother. Familia. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, so what does your life look like today?
Yeah. Today, things are not perfect, but they're a lot better. I have 2 adult kids now. Yeah. My son just graduated from UC Davis.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's why I couldn't do this last weekend.
Okay.
Because I was in Sacramento watching him graduate.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I have a daughter who just finished her first year at Baylor, and she played flag football. Yeah. But yeah, 2 adult kids, and then my wife right now, you know, as I shared in the meetings, she's battling stage 3 lung cancer, you know, and that's been heavy. You know, this year, 2026, has been a lot, you know.
Well, you're a living testament that life happens, you know what I mean? And as long as we stay clean and keep putting our best foot forward, like a higher power has us, you know what I mean? And we don't have to pick up no matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. Like I lost my mom in this program, you know what I mean? And that was probably the worst thing I ever went through in my life, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I did not one time think that I needed to pick up to feel better, you know, and the brothers in the room, they really supported me and they check up on me, you know what I mean? And that's what it's about, you know?
Let me ask you though, when you were experiencing all that grief and that like intense feeling, you didn't want to use, or you didn't have any thought of wanting to numb yourself out?
I didn't have any thought of that, right? So my thing was step into action, right? Okay, what do I need to do for the services? What do I need to do with the coroner? Who do I need to contact with my parents, right? And so I want to say like a month or 2 after that, I started feeling like really depressed, right? Thinking what a piece of shit son I was for all those years, right? Because I hadn't seen my mom for 20 years prior to so my mom moved to Vegas like in the mid 90s, right? And I hadn't went to see her for 20 years because I was either out there using or in custody, right? I was in prison.
Okay.
Right. So my excuse not to go see her because I'll be strung out when I'll be out here would be like, Mom, I can't go on parole. Right. So when I finally got clean and I was doing good, I told my mom, look, as soon as I get a parole, I'm gonna go out there. Right. So I discharged on a Wednesday. That following weekend I went to go see her. Right. And we embraced for like 20 minutes and she was just crying in my arms and I went to go see her.
Oh,
and to see my mom like 20 years later, like she was aged, you know what I mean? And I think I had a big deal to do with that, you know what I mean? Just because like the sleepless nights and like her stressing and praying for me, you know what I mean? So I would kick myself in the ass like for being a piece of shit for so long, right? Because it was all about me, right? So when I'll get incarcerated, Mom, can you send money for a package? Can you send money for green dot numbers for dope? She wouldn't know it was for dope, but I would use in there or for store or whatever, right? So I was really selfish in that manner. So, but after talking to the brothers in the program, right, and really praying on it, right, my mom got exactly what she wanted before she passed, right?
That's right.
She got her son back for the last 6 years of her life.
That's right.
I would go see her every holiday for my birthday, her birthday, spend time with her as much as I could, you know what I mean? But like, so the disease was messing with me in that sense, right? Like saying like, you're a piece of shit, like you should have been there more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But never once did I think that I should get loaded. You know what I mean? Because I knew that my family needed me. You know what I mean? And yeah, so that's what I went through. Yeah.
That's thanks for sharing that,
Yeah.
because dealing with grief is something that all of us are going to have to face.
Yeah.
You know, um, and if we're not ready for that, you know, we can crumble pretty easily. So, what I'm grateful for in this program is, number one, when I'm dealing with my issues and I hear about someone else, I already realize I'm not the only one with problems here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With some legitimate problems. There's everybody here has got his own um, issues and obstacles that they're going to have to deal with. I'm not the only one. Maybe in the past I wanted to think that, but it's just not true. And number two is when you said, like, you were hearing this voice of the disease telling you that you weren't a good son, but then you realized, no, your mom got exactly what she prayed for, which is a clean son.
Yeah, her son back.
She got her real son back, you know, as he was meant to be. I've learned in this program that when you give yourself to your higher power, to God, and you allow God um, basically to reform you back into the person that He originally designed you to be, that right there is real freedom. And for me, that is probably one of the um, best things that has happened to me in the program. Is it kind of recalibrated the way I think about myself and my environment and my God. As I told you, being a survivor of abuse, I had such a hateful picture of myself. I was disgusted with myself, and I wanted to just take that self portrait and crumble it up and throw it away. But in the program, it was like, no, I've been given another blank sheet of paper here, and this time, rather than me holding the paintbrush, I'm going to give this paintbrush over to my maker, to God, and let Him paint the portrait.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that portrait's cool. That portrait is um, beautiful, and I have to accept that that's me, and that's the person that uh, God wanted. So rather than letting this disease steal my life, you know, uh, I'm giving my life back over to God, who is the author of life,
Yeah.
and I'm actually receiving from Him a full and more complete life. So even though I am going through struggles right now, like with my lady who's ill, my mom also is going through some issues with you know um, Alzheimer's, dementia,
Yeah.
age related
Yeah.
decline. Um, you know, at the very least, I get to be there for my wife and kids, and I get to be there for my mother. It's not perfect by any means. I'm not presenting myself as the perfect husband and son, but the fact is, I'm there. And when I'm with them, I am present. It's not like my mind is on like my next fix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, guys, uh, I gotta go to the bathroom and I'll see you in about 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, it's like, what do you need? And what can I do for you?
Yeah.
And how can I be of service to you?
Yeah.
That's a gift of the program, to realize like our recovery is not a gift for only ourselves to enjoy, but it's a gift that affects those that we love. Because you really did get to be there for your mother for 6 years, you know. I mean, think about like all those people that like they die in the disease. They're out there on the streets, so it's like they're already detached from their families for who knows how many years, 20, 30 years, maybe more. And then they just end up dying from the disease, and the family never got to see their loved one back with them.
Or the other hand, where the parents die before they get to see the son.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm blessed in that sense for sure. Do you have any words of encouragement or suggestion for somebody that might be out there struggling?
Yeah, well, if you can relate to any of the things that we were sharing today, you know, just remember that you're not alone. And sometimes the disease gets us cornered and it makes us prisoners of our own minds. And we end up thinking that we're isolated. We end up thinking and believing that we're the only ones that are like this, and that everyone else is normal except for me. But the reality is, you have a whole community of people, brothers and sisters, that are ready to embrace you. You know, it's one of the principles in our program that any newcomer coming through the doors into recovery is the most important person in the room. And that's because we get to share our message of hope, experience, strength, and hope with someone who's ready to receive it. And so if you're ready to take that next step into recovery, I would encourage you to find a meeting that you like, and stay connected to it and make some new friends there. Find yourself a sponsor and start working some steps. Give it a shot, give it a year and see where it takes you. And, you know, we can pretty much guarantee you that if you stuck around for a year, your life will not be the same as it has ever been. So why not give it a shot? What else do you have to lose at this point, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for coming on, Jimmy. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
you, man.
Gabriel. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
And remember, change is possible. Redemption. Fools get clean too. What's your comeback story?